Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Be For Real hashtag Leaders Matter. This is episode number 7, and I'm Dr. E. Michelle Mickens, the CEO of Live for Change. Live for Change is a global strategic leadership development consultancy. We are a Christian-based organization, and we work with leaders. We work with leaders at any stage, whether you are an emerging leader, whether you are an established leader. Our goal is to provide consulting services, coaching opportunities. We do training and workshops centered around inclusion, corporate social responsibility, diversity, unconscious bias, organizational culture, various topics that pertain to work environment issues, culture issues, leadership challenges. And today, I'm inviting you to take a listen to my podcast. So I'm coming to you via video, but I want to promote, if you will, my Anchor.fm podcast. I'm sticking with the theme on leaders who love, lead with love. This is the month of love, absolutely, right? And also, I'm touching on the fact that it is Black History Month. And I was trying to decide what would be a topic that is pertinent to what I do, as well as ongoing, whether it's Black History Month or not, Black History Month or not. And what came to mind actually was inspired by an article that I read this morning. Today is February 2nd, February 20, the 20th, 2020. Yes, February 2020. And the article that I read was in LinkedIn. Many of you all who are connected with LinkedIn probably saw this article, and it had to do with the importance of no longer talking about diversity, but talking about race. And then that article reminded me of another article that I read about microaggression. And I thought, you know what, this is really a topic that's trending on the heels of inclusion. And so this may not be your typical Black history topic. This is not a topic that is actually celebrating any one particular African American who's made tremendous accomplishments thus far, but it is a topic that many African Americans, Black people experience, women in particular. And, I've experienced quite a bit of microaggression. And so I thought, you know what? I did a podcast centered around this topic, and I tied the microaggression conversation with corporate social responsibility and inclusion. One of my topics that I enjoy writing about, blogging about, talking about is corporate social responsibility. As a matter of fact, I want to share with you all, it's an e-quote that I think it's relevant to what I'm talking about today. And that is corporate social responsibility is about the impact of the imprint being made by your footprint in the earth. So corporate social responsibility is about the impact that you are making, the impact of your imprint made by your footprint in the earth. And I think that kind of summarizes what corporate social responsibility is. There are many definitions for corporate social responsibility, but it has to do with, it is a leg or a component of sustainability. Also ESG, which is environmental social governance. And again, it's really about how a company, an organization, corporation shows up, presents itself in the environment of which they are also to serve. How are they, impacting the planet? How are they impacting their people and the people in the community where they are, whether we're talking locally, nationally, globally? And then I've added another piece, the purpose of the organization. the planet, the people, the profit, and the purpose. So there are 4 areas. And then I also added the piece on how are you addressing internal issues. So it's not just enough to answer how you are showing up in a community, whether it's locally, whether it's nationally, whether it's internationally, but you also have to account for how your organization address internal issues. So I'm talking about that culture. And these pieces fit together. Lately, it's become more popular to hear about organizations talk about how they are focused on their purpose. And because I believe that purpose is everything, purpose is what centers you and it governs how you make decisions when you understand your purpose as an individual as well as your purpose of the organization that you are leading. Purpose is everything, as I said before. And so many organizations are taking a step back. They're realigning their vision and mission and purpose. They're realigning their activities. They're realigning who they say they are with who they say they stand for and why they are in the world. And so there's a lot of realignment and there's recommitment to being more transparent, taking care of their stakeholders, not just the shareholders, but everyone that they come encounter with, being more ethical. All of these wonderful promises kind of birthed out of this desire to be and answer the concerns that a lot of the customers have, as well as a lot of the employees have about the organization being authentic and being transparent. But in that whole piece of authenticity and being a socially responsible organization, you absolutely cannot check off on your checklist that you address diversity because you have a diversity officer. Some have a D&I officer all in one. And, if that's how you're set up, that's fine. Some have a corporate social responsibility officer or a sustainability officer, right? Or ESG person. Those positions have a purpose. They are needed. They are necessary. But it doesn't matter if they exist and they don't engage with each other, right? Because they're hired to serve a very specific purpose. And so they must talk to each other in order for the purpose of the organization to truly be fulfilled. You understand what I'm saying? So HR, your HR leaders need to be at the table when conversations are happening, especially as it pertains to the workplace culture. So I tap into that a little bit on my podcast or in my podcast. So I want to encourage you, please listen to the Anchor FM Introverted Loudmouth podcast. I'm the Introverted Loudmouth. One other thing that I want to mention, a few key points. Purpose becomes obscure in a toxic work environment. Purpose becomes obscure in a toxic work environment. It's not enough, as I stated before, it's not enough to have your officers in place and you can check off on your checklist and say, you know what, we're good because we have these people. And they're not engaging with each other and they're not actively listening and engaging with the employees on a regular basis. Okay, so it's taking things a little further. And you, the CEO, you, the owner of the organization, you, whatever your role is, whatever your leadership role is, you want to keep your ear to the grind. You want to make sure that you are actively listening and being an intentional observer. Not only listening to what they're saying, what these leaders are saying, but you want to be out, in the plant. You want to walk the floors. You want to listen and ask questions and have some conversations with your people, with your employees. Microaggression happens all the time. If you are a diverse organization and you have, you know, a representation, I'll say it like that, of African American women in particular, that's really what this piece of conversation is about. You'd be surprised if you don't be intentional, choose to become conscious, and that can be an uncomfortable thing because there is comfort in being unconscious. But if you are intentional and if you are choosing to become conscious, then you are going to have a way of listening and paying attention to what's taking place in the workplace. Being an African American woman, I've been approached in so many various ways. It wasn't uncommon for me to be the only Black woman in an organization, and I'm talking a major corporation. It wasn't uncommon for me to be the only one at the table. As I moved up in leadership roles, it was not uncommon to be one of, if not the only one of a few African American women who were even able to come to the table, right? And it's unfortunate, but we're in a different age now. Even 10 years ago, it was different for me than it is today. We have learned how to toughen up and suck it up and take a lot of things in. But I'll give you an example of what happened when I used to live in Atlanta many years ago. And when I say many, I mean many. When I had recently graduated from college and made a decision to move to Atlanta, and I was working for this organization that was relatively small. Now, let me say this, and I was the only African American young girl at the time, really young, and it was okay. I didn't mind. But being the only African American there, I didn't mind that at all. I didn't think twice because I was accustomed to being in that space, in that environment, work environment. But I remember getting my hair done. And one of the things that I did all the time, I would get braids, my hair braided, and I wore these long braids, this particular change of style. I had long braids. And I went to work and we had a special meeting that morning, got there early, and I became the topic of conversation. Now, I was accustomed to, at the time I was the secretary. So as the secretary, all I needed to do at that meeting was take notes. Everyone would greet me. Everyone was polite. We had a little breakfast, munchies, and I took notes at the meeting. That's what I did. And I was good at what I did, and I was very focused. This particular day, I didn't think twice of it because I'm accustomed to changing up my hairstyle all the time. But this is what I didn't realize, that I threw off, the group. They were all Caucasians, and they were flabbergasted. And I guess because I had these long braids, and I don't even remember what the style was prior to that, but I remember what happened to me. Now, let me remind you all, I am an introvert. So that in and of itself was something, not an issue, but a fact of who I was. And then the question, can I touch your hair? I was like, no. And they made such a big deal. Oh, we just want to understand tell us about your hair. Tell us about you and this hairstyle that you have going on. Now, that wasn't really an aggressive situation, but I felt targeted because I was. It was enough to understand that you're the only Black person at the table. But then they made this because of their own unconsciousness. They didn't know that they could have been offending me or any of those things. They were truly, genuinely asking the question. Why did I bring that up? Because of how it made me feel. And after that, I felt myself become more withdrawn. So that's one isolated incident. I want to share something else with you. I recall a time when I, and this wasn't that long ago, this may have happened maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I'm in a different place. I'm back in Ohio. I hire someone who has a shared vision, right? We have a shared vision to effect change in our community. And I hired her to operate our urban farm at the time. We had an urban agriculture business, a sustainable urban agriculture business, right? So some of you all who follow me, who knew me then, 6 years plus, know that that was something that I was very passionate about. Good for the environment, good for the economy in that area, just a lot of pluses. And so I hired an African-American young woman who was on fire. She knew this position inside and out better than I could even articulate what I needed. She could anticipate. She had vision, I had vision. We had shared vision for this project, for this big, it was an economic project. Anyhow, without going on too far, we were trying to get, my organization wanted to get some funding for this particular project. And so she and I were meeting to discuss some approaches that we needed to take. And of course, I'm always open to receive, talk to me, give me some feedback. Let's plan this thing out. Let's, hash out what we need to so that we'll be in sync when we meet with these city, officials and these decision makers that would, impact the next step for this particular project. And so one of the things she asked me, she said, can I be frank with you? Can I just be open with you? And I'm thinking that we always had been. So of course I'm like, absolutely. And she said, you're awfully aggressive. And I didn't know how to take it. I was flabbergasted. And that's really not my word for the season, but I was taken aback. And I asked her, I said, what do you mean? How am I aggressive? And she elaborated on a lot of things. And she said, well, I think it's because of the position that you're in and you have to make quick decisions. She said, but you can come across really aggressive. Now, this is from someone that I truly admired and respected. We had a shared vision on many areas. And so when she said that, I did share with her that I didn't think I was, because I still don't. I believe in assertion, but I just couldn't see me being aggressive. And I even shared that with her and defined the difference in case she didn't understand. Well, long story short, she heard and received everything I said, and she stood by her observation of me. She said, you are aggressive. And so we went on to plan around, how we were going to work together to pursue this funding, which we did get, in fact, but just the fact that she said that, it stuck with me. So I said that to say microaggression, because it made me feel a certain way. It wasn't a put down, so I wasn't insulted, I wasn't assaulted, I don't feel, but it was not an accurate description. But this is what she saw, and you can't change someone else's opinion, right? Or can you? That's another conversation for another day. But I'm sharing this with you because it can happen among peers. It can happen among the same ethnic group. But it happens in different forms. Microaggression can happen in so many ways. Sometimes it's very subtle. Subtle to the point where it is described as unconscious. And sometimes it's very much in your face, where you're being called out of your name. I've been called out of my name. I have been mistaken for a position, being somebody less than who I was. Not that I'm stuck on positions, but my goodness. Just making assumptions because of the color of my skin, because there was nothing else that would have led this person to believe anything other than, well, because she's black and she's here, she must be this. And it was okay. Many times I've been asked, as the CEO of an organization, I've been asked, where is the executive director or where is the leader? And I'm like, you're talking to her. And these are, unfortunately, it happened many times with Caucasian men and even other women. I need to talk to the decision maker. So anyhow, I mention that because if you are the leader of your organization and if you truly are talking about how you're focused on your purpose, if you're truly talking about being more socially responsible, if you're really talking about giving people a sense of belonging, do not negate that there are other underlying issues. That's how culture works, right? There is an underlying assumption that is constantly brewing. Are you aware? Are you aware? So that's it for now. I want to encourage you to, again, check out the anchor.com current podcast. I believe it's podcast number 10. And it's on corporate social responsibility, CSR and inclusion. And drill down even more, the topic is focused on microaggression. I'm Dr. E. Michelle Mickens. I thank you so much for your time. I talked longer this time than I normally do, but I wanted to drive home a couple of points that I thought were pertinent for this conversation. Listen, I do training. I enjoy training. If you're looking for someone to provide training in the area of corporate social responsibility, in the area of ethics, in the area of organizational culture, unconscious biasness, or even inclusion, check out my website, www.live4changellc.com/training. I will put the links in my description bar. And let's get together. All right? You take care. And again, I thank you for your time. God bless you.